Hi, I'm Tammy Gordon and I curated this exhibition which is called Tasmanian Tiger Precious Little Remains at QVMAG. As everyone's probably aware, the last thylacine died in Hobart Zoo in 1936 and the animal is now considered extinct.
All the same, you've helped write the book, you've helped set up the exhibition. Yep. I know that you know a lot about Tasmanian wildlife. I mean, what's your views? Is it out there?
My views...
You're also an old clinical scientist, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I have had 30 years of listening to people coming in with sightings. My view on that really is, and it sounds a bit arrogant, that I've seen it all. I have seen outright hoaxes. I hear the same thing over and over again, which makes me start to think it's actually a phenomenon that has very little to do with thylacines. Because I'm hearing the same stories over and over again. I'm not hearing anything new or different. And there was a time in the 80s where I thought, yes, it's possible. There are still areas of the state. It's been so long. And so I can't prove it's not there, but it's extremely unlikely. And every year that goes by that I hear the same old stories and the same old things, it becomes more and more unlikely. But I obviously would be over the moon and as happy as anyone, even if it was a dead body brought in, because it's actually not the individual animal that matters so much. If you can find one, it means the population is healthy enough for you to have found one. And the concern here is we've found none in all that time, which is suggesting more and more that there is no healthy population. With the thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger, skeptics aren't popular. Anyone who suggests that it's extinct, it's not a popular thing to say. But I think there comes a time when you maybe need to draw a line and say, okay, until someone comes forward with a live or a dead thylacine, then we accept it's extinct and we direct our resources towards animals like Tasmanian devils or anything really, that we've got so many animals that are threatened and endangered. And we learn from the thylacine, and this exhibition's a lot about, okay, we did a bad thing, and people often come in here and start crying. It's a sad exhibition. We can't undo the past, but we can do something for the future.
Why do you think there's this desire that it is still out there? Is it guilt?
I've always thought it's a guilt thing, and part of doing the exhibition was to look at that response, and I see a lot of that in it. I see people feeling very guilty, which they shouldn't actually do, because it was something that was done in the past, and people have very different values in the past. They had different issues to deal with. So if you're trying to struggle to feed your family and you've got a large predator that appears to be a threat to that, you're going to act accordingly. We don't have the same issues now. So guilt is something I see a lot with people. I don't necessarily think people should feel that way. Just don't do it again, is the message I want to get across. Don't make the same mistakes twice. The exhibition was actually made possible under funding from the federal government, Your Community Heritage Program. We also produced a book of the same name, which is Tasmanian Tiger Precious Little Remains. And the book basically follows the exhibition, but has quite a bit more detail in it. We have a lot of the collection remains represented in the book. It's almost like a catalogue. And we have stories as well. We collected a lot of community stories that we present there and in the exhibition. This buggy rug was made from the skins of 8 thylacines. It was made in the early 1900s. It's unique, it's one of a kind. There's nothing like it anywhere in the world. And it's jointly owned with the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery. and the Queen Victoria Museum and Art Gallery. We can then go on to the film footage, which consists of a number of films. There isn't actually any colour footage of thylacines in existence. All we have are these black and white films that were done in the early 1900s. There are no audio recordings of thylacines. No one has any idea of what they sounded like. So they're silent pictures, 7 in total, and the only motion pictures of thylacines to exist anywhere. We're moving along. The exhibition is quite sad. The thylacine was the world's largest marsupial carnivore with a 25 million year evolutionary history. We tried to look in the exhibition and in the book at what caused the extinction, what were the drivers for extinction. There was no single driver we can identify. The clearest thing we had was really European settlement of Tasmania, which was rapid and it was brutal. Europeans changed the landscape of Tasmania forever. Before Europeans came, the thylacine had existed along with the Tasmanian Aboriginal people for at least 40,000 years. And it was only after Europeans arrived, they brought with them introduced animals, sheep, dogs, and I suppose importantly, they actually forcibly removed the Tasmanian Aboriginal population who were managing the land using fire-stick farming. So there would have been a whole shift to the ecology of the island. And so it's multiple factors, hunting by Europeans, but probably mainly the change to the ecosystem. We have an example here actually of, this tiger here is called Dilger's tiger, and he's quite interesting. He's one of the few specimens in the world that actually, museum specimens, that has any information with him. Most museum specimens throughout the world just have a label that basically says Tasmania and the date. And I did a bit of research into the history of Dilger's tiger. He had a label that said basically the same. But I was able to trace through the museum archives and documents and find out a little bit more about him, and it just grew as a story. And the more I found out about him, the more I realised he was quite significant in the fact that a lot of thylacines in the early 1900s, when they started to become rare, they became sought after by museums and universities as specimens. People were aware that they were going to die out in the scientific community, so the value went up. So if you caught a thylacine, it actually paid better than presenting it for bounty. It would pay better to give it to an animal dealer alive, who would then sell it on to zoos. And the story of Dilger's tiger, which is told in the book, and there's probably a lot to go into now, ended up at the museum almost by accident. We couldn't afford to pay the prices that animal dealers were paying at the time, but somehow we managed by accident to secure this particular thylacine, and it's one of the few that we have. The rest, most of the thylacines went overseas to places like the British Museum, Europe and America. Yeah, so in some ways museums, when thylacines became rare, museums, universities, zoos were almost another driving force towards pushing them towards extinction, because they went from a pest to basically be snared and trapped and bodies thrown away to suddenly becoming a valuable animal for science and for zoos. So what you see is a sort of shift in the market for thylacines, and it's possible that that was what actually pushed an already rare animal over the edge. And we're a museum, so yeah, things were different then, and we try not to be too judgmental about the past. We have here, we decided to sort of say something about sightings and searches, because people have searched for the thylacine since the last one died. It wouldn't have been the last, but the last recorded death in 1936. And there have been a whole series of searches by state government employees, private searches, and if you look at the timeline from 1937 and we go through to 2006 to the present, the common theme, unfortunately, is fairly intensive searches. No thylacine seen, no thylacine seen or filmed. Many animals caught, but no thylacines. And that, it's a long time, it's well over 80 years, no thylacines. Yet there are people that still continue to search, and there are people that still believe they're there. The search goes on.